Wait a minute, I already told you, I didn't cheat on my husband, I said, but my mother-in-law and husband didn't believe me. They acted like it was already proven. I kept denying it, but my mother-in-law wouldn't stop. My son is sterile. There's no way you could be pregnant with his child. If you get a medical test, it'll prove you cheated. But honestly, we don't even need that, it's obvious. I tried to argue back, but my own mother slapped me. I looked at my parents, but they just stared at me coldly. My name is Anna, I'm 34 and work in an office. I got married to my husband, William, last year after dating him for a long time. We both work and share house chores, so our life feels balanced. William can cook, clean, and do laundry. I've always appreciated that about him. We were living happily as newlyweds, and I thought this happiness would last forever. From the start of our marriage, I wanted to have kids. In my 20s, I was focused on my career, but as I watched my friends raising happy families, I started longing for a child of my own. However, maybe because of my age, I hadn't been able to get pregnant yet. It was disheartening, but I kept hoping. Then one morning, I woke up feeling sick. Could this be it? I grabbed a pregnancy test, and when I saw the positive result, I couldn't believe my eyes. Was I really pregnant? I called into work late and rushed to the hospital to be sure. The doctor confirmed it. Yes, you're pregnant. I can hear the baby's heartbeat. Congratulations, you're about 3 months along. Hearing this, I couldn't hold back my tears of happiness. I couldn't wait to tell William. On my way home, I stopped at the supermarket to get food and planned a special dinner. I imagined how excited William would be. Would he cry happy tears? Would we hug and celebrate together? I cooked dinner that evening with a big smile on my face. When William got home, he looked at the table. Wow, dinner looks amazing tonight, he said as he loosened his tie. Still smiling, I told him, I have big news, I'm pregnant. He froze, looking shocked, but instead of joy, his reaction crushed me. Whose baby is it? He asked. What? I stared at him, confused. I'm asking, whose child is it? His voice was cold, and his eyes were distant. What are you talking about? Of course, it's yours, I replied, stunned. He sighed deeply. I'm sterile, Anna. What? My heart sank. So it's not mine. I didn't think you'd cheat on me. I'm so disappointed. Wait, I didn't cheat on you. This baby is yours. I tried to explain, but he didn't believe me. I need time to think. I'm going back to my parents' house, he said. Then he left without even touching the dinner I made. A few days later, William called my parents and said he wanted a meeting with them. I begged him to talk to me first, but he refused. In the end, we agreed to meet at my parents' house that Saturday. I was so anxious that I couldn't sleep that night. I didn't know how to explain everything to my parents. When my in-laws arrived, my mom asked, "What's going on? What do you mean? Haven't you heard from your daughter?" I heard Anna's pregnant, but it's not my son's child. My parents froze. I never thought Anna would cheat on him. I thought they had a good marriage, my mother-in-law said. Wait, I told you before, I didn't cheat on him, I protested. But my mother-in-law and husband were already convinced I was guilty. I denied it again, but she didn't stop. My son is sterile, so it's impossible for her to be pregnant with his baby. If we get a medical certificate, it'll prove the affair. But we don't even need that, it's obvious, she added. I tried to argue, but then my mother slapped me. I looked at my parents, but they were both looking at me coldly. My husband and mother-in-law gave me mocking looks. You deserve to be slapped. You cheated and never apologized for it, my mother-in-law said. When she said that, my mom bowed her head. I'm sorry, I apologize. My mother urged me to apologize too, and my dad also apologized to my mother-in-law and husband, saying my daughter caused a lot of trouble. He grabbed my head and pushed me down to apologize. I pushed my dad's hand away and asked them to listen to me, but they wouldn't. They were so angry. You've caused so much trouble and shame for our family. You're no daughter of mine, my father yelled in front of my in-laws. Oh my God, they've disowned you. I guess you got what you deserved, my mother-in-law laughed. Just then, the door to the living room opened, and my sister walked in. Dad, Mom, please calm down, she said. Finally, she was here. My father, still furious, turned on her too. How can you stay so calm after all this? This isn't your problem. We're family, of course, it's my business. My sister turned to my mother-in-law and husband. Is it true that you're sterile? My mother-in-law and husband looked at my sister with confused expressions. Do you think your sister-in-law is accusing us, William? My mother-in-law asked. No, not at all, but it might help if we had some facts to back it up, my sister replied calmly. When did you have the test? She asked. My husband and mother-in-law exchanged looks. He didn't take any tests, my mother-in-law finally admitted. What? I was shocked, and my sister was surprised too. Then how can you say he's sterile? My sister asked. Are you trying to scare us? He hasn't had a test, but it's true, my mother-in-law said defensively. My sister stayed calm and asked, how can you be so sure? My mother-in-law sighed, clearly annoyed, and started explaining. My son was married before. He couldn't have children after 7 years of marriage, but his ex-wife got pregnant right after the divorce, so it must be my son's problem. She ended her story with certainty. That's not proof that my husband is sterile, I said, but I didn't know how to argue since I didn't know enough about it. I looked at my sister for help, and she nodded, then spoke again. I understand why you think that, but you can't say for sure he's sterile just because of that. There are people who have kids after 10 years of marriage without fertility treatment. My mother-in-law interrupted, don't try to lecture me with what you found on the internet. You're not a doctor, so what you say doesn't matter. I thought, she's not even listening properly. I am a doctor, I'm an obstetrician, my sister said flatly. What? My husband and mother-in-law were shocked. It seemed like they hadn't really paid attention to my sister before. I explained this before you all got married, you're just guessing. If you really want to blame my sister, let's get a proper test. I can do it for you at a reasonable price since I'm family. At that, both my husband and mother-in-law looked uncomfortable, but they seemed stuck. If you insist, let's do the test, my husband said, reluctantly agreeing. The test was done, and I decided to stay at my sister's house while we waited for the results. I didn't want to see my husband or go back to my parents' house. My sister tried to cheer me up, which helped me stay calm. A few weeks later, the results came in. We all met at my parents' house to hear the news. It turned out there was nothing wrong with my husband. My mother-in-law's face went pale, and my husband was surprised. Anna, I'm sorry, but I'm glad there's nothing wrong with me. Now we know the baby is mine, he said, sounding relieved. I was speechless. Who was it that agreed with my mother-in-law and accused me based on just assumptions? My mother-in-law laughed and said, if we'd done this test earlier, we wouldn't have had all this trouble. She didn't even apologize to me. I guess that settles everything for now, my husband said, looking proud. I thought to myself, I can't be with someone like this anymore. When my husband said, let's go home together, I refused. Noticing how I felt, my sister stepped in. I don't think she's ready to go back yet. I'll stay with her. My husband reluctantly agreed, and he and my mother-in-law finally left my parents' house. What a pair they are, they almost convinced us too, my father muttered. I'm sorry I slapped you the other day, but this whole mess is their fault, my mother said, apologizing. My parents were angry at my husband and mother-in-law, but from my point of view, they were also to blame. My sister took me straight to her apartment. As soon as we arrived, I felt such relief that I couldn't stop crying. My sister didn't say anything, she just hugged me and comforted me. No one believed me. Everyone looked at me with cold, suspicious eyes, and it terrified me. In the middle of all that, my sister was the only one who stood by me. I was so glad I had talked to her before the meeting at my parents' house. She came all the way to support me, and I couldn't thank her enough. I stayed with my sister for a few days, resting both physically and emotionally. Then, I made a decision. My sister came with me to my husband's house. When my husband saw us, he greeted me, "Welcome home, I've been waiting for you." He was surprised to see my sister and another person with me. My sister-in-law. And who is the other person? He asked. This is a lawyer. I asked him to come today. A lawyer? My husband was clearly upset. Why a lawyer? I can't live with you anymore. I want a divorce. When I said the word divorce, my husband went pale. Wait a minute, this is so sudden, he said. It's not sudden, not after everything that's happened, I replied firmly. No, I'm sorry about everything, but you can't just divorce me over that, he argued. The lawyer calmly explained to him, from what I can see, blindly blaming Anna is grounds for divorce. Also, knowing Anna wanted children, yet hiding your infertility, is a serious issue. I could tell my husband hadn't expected this. He nodded, looking stunned. With him standing quietly to the side, I packed my things and went back to my sister's house. After that, I only communicated with my husband through the lawyer. I asked for compensation for the emotional pain he caused me, a fair division of property, and child support. Thanks to my lawyer, I got everything I asked for. Also, my mother-in-law and husband spread rumors in the neighborhood and at his work, claiming I had an affair. I sued them for defamation. In addition to getting more money, both my husband and mother-in-law were forced to publicly apologize and correct the lies they told. As a result, they lost all credibility and became socially isolated. I decided to rent an apartment just down the street from my sister's house. My parents offered for me to move back home and help raise my child, but I politely declined. I couldn't let my parents, who didn't protect me when I needed them most, raise my child. My sister also had bad experiences with our parents, who cared more about their reputation than anything else. Because of that, she distanced herself from them as well. I'm grateful to my parents for sending me to school, but I can't ignore how disappointed I am in them. From now on, I'll keep my relationship with them minimal. What matters most to me is having a sister who truly cares for me and stands by me. Of course, I'll do my best to help her when she needs it too. Above all, I need to be strong, for the sake of my unborn child. Blaming me based on assumptions, without even checking the facts, what a terrible husband and mother-in-law. And my parents, who believed them and blamed me without listening to my side, they're just as guilty. I'm so thankful Anna has such a wonderful sister. Raising a child as a single mother won't be easy, but I know she'll be okay. Cherish your sisterly bond and live each day happily.